You're listening to Kids Ministry Answers from Stuff You Can Use, from Stuff You Can Use, from StuffYouCanUse.org.
Welcome to Kids Ministry Answers. My name is Linda.
And my name is Jason, and this is the podcast where you ask the questions and we help you find the answers.
Hey, Jason. How's it going?
Hey, Linda. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I do have a very important question to ask before we kick things off today.
Okay.
As everyone on this podcast knows by now, I am quite obsessed with doing jigsaw puzzles. And I have a lot of shows just kind of playing in the background as I do them. And so, real quick, Jason, are you a binge an entire show in one sitting kind of person?
Okay.
Or are you the week by week, I can kind of pace it out and watch one at a time kind of person?
Okay, yeah, this is a great question. I definitely am the week by week kind of person. And
Okay.
a couple of reasons. I just can't sit for hours and hours and hours and watch things. So binging has never been my thing. Both I don't have the time for it and I just physically don't want to do it,
Right.
And then also I enjoy the chatting between episodes. It's part of the fun of watching a show with someone to talk about it between episodes. I think that's part of the fun for me. So if you just watch it all in one sitting.
And discuss theories?
I don't do that much, no. But I do talk theories with my wife. That's the person I'm usually watching shows with. So
Sure.
we definitely do talk theories for sure between episodes, or just talk about what happened in the episode and how wild it was or whatever. So yeah, I really enjoy that part. So not a binge person. How about you?
Okay. I mean, I vacillate between the two depending on the show and the genre. When it gets too heavy, when it's something that's very intense and drama, I don't like to binge watch them because I just start feeling really heavy afterwards.
Right.
Or if it's a little bit of a thriller, I'm like, ooh, that's a little too much. But I can binge the lighter things usually. But I remember because I grew up, binging wasn't a thing when we were growing up for the most part. And this is going to date us a little bit. But, you have memories of going to Blockbuster and the video store to rent shows or movies and things. And you only had a certain amount of time. And then they would release a few episodes at a time. And so you had to wait and there was that anticipation. But
Yeah.
I especially grew up with Korean dramas where the dramas were not even for me, I feel 22 episodes is long nowadays. But back then, they were so long. The Korean dramas were in the 30s, 40s, 50s. And there's
Wow.
just so many trips to the video store.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't have a hard answer on that. And I think that goes to show that there's really not a wrong or right answer in how you consume the content, because the content is the same and the delivery is the same, right? It's still the same medium. It's just what's changing there is kind of the pace in which you're engaged with it, and sometimes you're talking about it, sometimes you're I need to know what happens next. And so in a kind of roundabout way, it does lead to today's question, which has to do with how we pace our teaching and how we can get our existing curriculum to stretch a little to match. So let's take a listen.
Hello, my name's Mallory and I'm from Wisconsin. What I'm wondering is, how can I use my Grow Kids subscription for both midweek and weekend services? Thanks.
Hey, Mallory. We got
Hi,
a Grow
Mallory.
user in the house.
Yeah, from
Hello. Thanks
Wisconsin.
for asking this question.
Yep. Thanks for the question, Mallory. A really good one.
Yeah, and I know Mallory's asking specifically about using the Grow Kids curriculum.
Yeah.
But in this episode, we're going to talk about how to stretch whatever curriculum you use, because no matter what you use, it follows a very similar format, because the way we teach kids scripture and how we get kids to engage with them, it's pretty universal. And so this is a really good and also a very common question, I think. I feel a lot of people feel that they would like to kind of get more mileage out of the curriculum they're using, especially if they are hosting multiple weekly gatherings, and they feel a lot of pressure to keep things fresh and interesting at both or more gatherings.
Yes.
And they don't want to be repetitive and say the same thing each time. And they want to create something great without having to spend extra time, extra money, and extra energy to invest in multiple different curriculums. And it's just a lot of work. And ministry leaders, you are already doing a lot of work. So we want to help. We really want to dive into this together with you. And we can't wait to share what we think.
Yeah, totally. I can really relate to this question a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And not to be too much of a homer, I know that like we're not directly just talking about Grow curriculum, but this is really part of the reason why my church started using Grow is because it did work so well to stretch over a lot of different formats. That is kind of what my church needs. So this is a great question, a great thing to be talking about because I think more and more people are dealing with this question these days.
I mean, you think you're biased. I oversee our curriculum. So my
we'll
initial
try.
instinct is like,
We'll try
just
not
use
to
Grow. We got you.
make this a
No.
commercial for Grow curriculum, but we promise we'll try. 100%.
Yes, but no, we really understand having been in different ministry contexts in larger churches, smaller churches,
Yeah.
with different budgets, with different kind of expenditure and just time investment. We really understand the need for this kind of question to get resolved because we really want to help make sure that you are making the most of what you have without having to do so much extra research and do a lot more work than you're already doing. So
Exactly.
let's get started. Jason, where do you want to kick us off?
Okay, so I think the thing that we want to do first, before we even get started kind of dividing and stretching a lesson over different formats, we really have to understand what our program structure is. So before we dive into kind of the specifics of dividing it, we need to understand the positives and the negatives of our different programs. So what do each of your programs do well? High energy for this particular one? Or is it low energy? Is it a large group focus? Is it a small group focus? Which of your programs, and this I think is a huge one, can you get more consistent volunteer help? You're definitely going to want to know
Right.
that before you get into dividing this up. Because as we'll talk about, like there's plenty of ways to actually do this, to split up a lesson into like two parts. But it's really important that we first like identify and evaluate the existing environments that we have. So for instance, like in my context, a lot of our midweek stuff for kiddos is like small group based. Like we do stuff based on like hobbies. So it's like a puzzle group. You would love that, Linda.
Oh,
And
I
then
would. Can I
there's
come?
yeah, you can come anytime. There's also like a chess group. So that's obviously for like some older kids and some
Sure.
youth. And it has like a short Devo attached to it. So what I can identify in that is like, usually it's low energy, although with kids, like, is it really ever low energy? But like lower energy environment and obviously a small group focus. So what that helps me to do is like, okay, as I look at a lesson, I have this filter for the kind of stuff that I'm going to pull from this lesson for that particular format.
Right. That's a really good place to start. And if you are, in fact, one of the people who don't have midweek programs yet, but you're feeling pressured to start, or you
Yeah.
have been planning to start and you didn't know where to start, this is a really good place to think about how I might want to structure it and how you want
Totally.
each gathering to look so that you can differentiate the two different meeting times. Yeah, that's
Yes.
great. So once you've established what you think your program structure looks like, the next thing that we want to do is to understand your lesson format. So now this is a good time for you to audit the curriculum you do have and see what comes in each week's lesson and how it's structured. And you might already know this, but just take a real deep dive into what each of the offerings are. Because sometimes when we're in, like I am guilty of this too, when I'm in that like I need to plan for Sunday mode, we tend to just kind of like go through it really quickly. Let me just extract the things that I like real quick. But sometimes when you actually sit and and go through everything a little bit more deeply, then you realize, oh, this is actually really good. I would love to do this as well. I just don't have time for it. So this is where the planning kicks in. So let me speak specifically for Grow. Our lessons are organized around 3 core movements. So we start off with what we call the what section, and then we move on to so what, and then now what. So in the what, we're asking, what are we talking about this week? This is where we have a lot of the high energy things. We introduced a theme for the month, and we build curiosity around what we're talking about today. And then we move over to the so what section, which is where the bulk of our teaching happens. We ask the question, why does this matter to God and to us? And so we teach the scripture, we reveal the big idea, and we pair it with all sorts of different things that help reinforce that teaching. And then we move on to the now what section, which is asking the question, so what do I do about this, right? And so this is a time for kids to discuss, to respond, to reflect, and learn how they can apply what they learned. And so we use the words what, so what, now what, at Grow, but this is not a unique structure for sure, because a lot of different lessons, most of them probably follow that natural flow of starting with a setup of some sort and then doing the teaching and then talking application. So this is a good way to really break down what's in each section, and understanding your lesson format really allows you to find which elements you think would fit in which environment that you have now allocated, and where you can best capitalize on energy, where you might want to explain a Bible story. Is it going to be in a large group setting, or is it going to be in small groups? Are we going to give kids time to process in small groups in one meeting? Are we doing a craft? Like, these are the things that we want to think about as we evaluate the lessons that we're working with.
Exactly, yeah. No, this is awesome, because I think no matter the format that we're doing, we really want the flow to be there. I think that's kind of one of the pitfalls that we can fall into when we're doing this stretching, is that some environments might feel like they're incomplete, or you're coming in like midstream. You really want each of these to have a full developed flow.
And sometimes I think when we only use parts of a curriculum for one gathering, we start dismissing things because we think we don't have space for it, we don't have time for it. But now when we're thinking about stretching it into 2 gatherings, then we're like, oh, maybe we can make space for it. And it would be valuable to make the environment for this activity to take place. So I think that really helps us think about lessons differently too.
Okay, so we understand the program structure that we're dealing with. We've started to talk about understanding the format and how it's going to flow. So now it's time to actually get into the work of dividing your lesson over multiple formats. So where do we get started?
Yeah, so we're going to talk about 3 ways that you might want to divide your lesson. I'm sure these are not the only ways, but we're just showing you these as the most easy, the most accessible, and honestly, we over here at KMA just want to save you from extraneous energy, right? So we're here. We're on your side. So here are some ways that you might want to take a weekly lesson structure and divide it up for your 2 different environments. So the first one is we're going to talk about how we can divide it evenly, right? So we just hold 2 standalone programs that aren't repetitive, but so you would just basically take a lesson and split it down the middle, right? So you can have both times look more or less the same, just with a little different activity twist flavor each time. So maybe both programs start off with the worship, we teach the Bible story, we reveal the big idea, we have like different types of activities. But then when you pare it down and you go to each of the sections, then you go, okay, well, in gathering 1, I should say, we're going to do an object lesson. But then for gathering 2, we're going to show a video. So then you just kind of differentiate which activities you want to allocate to which meeting time, so that they are kind of equal, and it's like if you miss service 1, come to service 2, you're going to get the same information. And so this works best when you have like the both gatherings tend to be similar in length. similar in energy, attendance overlaps a lot, and you just want consistency across the week. Maybe your volunteer teams are swapping out, so you have like one set of volunteers in week one, or in gathering one, I should say, and a different set of volunteers in gathering two. However, you decide you want just like two mostly identical gatherings, this is the way to do it. And so let's say if you are using Grow, you would take like one of the opening activities in the what section for meeting one, and then you would take the other opening activity for meeting two, or maybe you do a poll or a question there depending on which one you like better, and then you teach the scripture, and then you do the big idea reveal, and then you're like, okay, on Sunday we're going to do reflection, and then on Wednesday we're going to do response. And so you just kind of break it down that way, and I think that might be a really cool way to do it as a start.
Totally. I think this is probably like the easiest way to do it.
Yes.
And again, like, not to be a total like company guy today, but I think this is like one of the reasons why Grow is great, is because there's so much there for you that, like you said, you can almost just split it right down the middle,
right,
and you're going to be in a good spot for both of these services with the same lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
This is my experience as well, because we do intentionally try to provide more than you'll usually need for a single time. And so we hope that there is enough overflow for you to split it into two meetings if that is your situation. And also, it does give you time if you split it that way. It gives you more time to sit with it instead of feeling like you're rushed through each of the modules to get it done. You know, maybe you only spend 10 minutes on reflection, but maybe now with this new format, I can spend upwards of 15 to 20 minutes on it. And that might really lead to some cool conversations.
Yeah, that's totally one of the pros of doing this, is the more time you have with the different modules. I think that's a huge part of it. So that's a cool thing that comes with it. Another way that we can do this is dividing by vibe. Linda, I always get the vibe stuff.
You're the vibe guy.
Is that what I am? I must be the vibe guy. Anything that's associated to vibes.
He knows all about vibes.
Well, anyway, you can divide it by vibe. And what this is really ideal for is like if you have two different programs, I kind of talked about this earlier, two different programs that have very different vibes. So this approach really plays to the strengths of each environment that you have. So high energy, large group friendly activities obviously go where that fits best. And then you'll take your quieter, reflective, discussion heavy activities and elements, and that goes like where that fits best. So and also where you have more volunteers, because you're going to need volunteers to like be in those small groups with kiddos. So an example of this is like Sunday morning, and I'm just talking like general what works, but you totally need to know your own kind of environments. So Sunday morning, you might want to do your teaching, your big all-together games, and then your worship time that fits with a better, like bigger environment. And then midweek, like I talked about earlier, if it's structured around a game, maybe that game isn't as high energy. And then like a scripture summary and discussion time, or vice versa, really depending on the volunteers that you have and the energy of the program. So basically what I'm saying is, when you're dividing by vibe, you really have to let the structure dictate the strategy.
Yes, that's an excellent point. And this is actually something that we used to do when we had our midweek programs, which has been disbanded temporarily since the pandemic, unfortunately. But when we had our Friday night meetings with kids, it was really difficult to try to replicate what we do on Sundays on Fridays, because Friday nights, you know, it's the end of the week. Kids just spent all day at school and all week at school for that matter. So when they come to church on Fridays, they're in play mode, and that's great. And we don't want them to come to church feeling like, oh, this is another thing I have to give up on a Friday night. But we want kids to feel excited to come to church, be like, ooh, I wonder what fun things we're going to do today. So I think it was really beneficial for us to have all of those high energy activities and snacks and crafts and like just like more hands-on, like kinesthetic type things on that midweek program day. And then on Sunday, Sundays, we were able to get a little bit more contemplative, a little bit more in that worshipful atmosphere, I should say, where we had kids do worship. We did like intentional prayer and reflection. And so I think that worked out really great. So establishing a vibe is a really excellent idea.
Yeah, and that's totally like the strength of dividing by vibe
Mm-hmm.
is that you can let those different services have their different strengths fully. You don't
Right.
have to force anything. So
Right.
we give you so many options again with Crow, but sometimes you just put all this stuff together and you go for it. But when you're dividing by vibe, you can really get into like, oh, this module would be super cool for, like you said, like this Friday night more contemplative service. And you can
Mm-hmm.
let those different environments totally be their own distinct thing when you divide by
Right.
vibe.
And I also would like to add a note that for your context, that vibe can be dictated by so many different things,
Mm-hmm.
because I have been at a Korean immigrant church where the midweek services were less predictable when it came with length and
Yeah.
duration. So sometimes those Friday night gatherings would last 4 hours longer than we anticipated.
Right.
So then you have to plan for, okay, so it can't just be I'm planning a 45-minute session or like a 120-minute session, right? You have to account for the fact that there might be other things I'm going to need to do as backup. So understanding that vibe is going to help you prepare better as well.
Totally.
So the last way that we want to recommend that you divide your existing curriculum lesson is to divide by purpose. So this is ideal for situations where every kid goes to both programs. So it really depends on how your church is set up. So if kids do come to both, this is great because then they get all of the what, so what, now what. But if they don't, then they might only get just part of it, which is
Yeah.
okay. God can work with anything, but, we want to do our very best to give the kids the full exposure to what we want to impart from that Bible teaching.
Yeah.
So if you are splitting it up by purpose in this way, you might, for example, in program 1, so let's say Sunday is your start date, you want to do the learning aspect of it. So you do the what section, the so what section. So we do some fun activities and we introduce the theme and we talk about the Bible story, we reveal the big idea, and we get all of this, what is this topic, right? What is this story? Just get that down in that first session. And then in your midweek program, that's when you can really dive deeper into response and discussion. So this would be your now what of it all. And so here you can really allow kids to grapple with questions, ask questions, just spend a lot of time talking together and help them think about next steps, how they can apply what they've learned, and really even go deeper with scripture, because we also add a secondary scripture for every week of lesson. And sometimes you don't have time to cover that in the first session. And so maybe in the second session, this is like, well, this big idea also shows up in this other part of scripture, and you can dive a little deeper, help kids with their biblical literacy. It's a great way to split it up if that works for your context. And in both lessons, kids can feel like, oh, these things are connected, but also each of these things are important, and I want to be here for both.
Yeah. And I think this is probably the most difficult one to do because it's probably hardest to not feel repetitive when you're doing it this way. But, we might be dividing the lessons over multiple formats for necessity, but this really makes it a strength when we divide it by purpose, because for me, it like gives you a chance, like you said, to go deeper and pull more layers away from the scripture, but then gives more chance for response, which I know response is the thing that I often feel like, man, we just breeze through response. Like we just tag it on the end because you just don't have the time and you're wrapping up stuff. So when you can fit this into a whole program of its own, it really gives more time for that. And that's really a strength of doing it this way.
Yeah. And I think also, in addition to what you're saying, it really builds anticipation for what we're going to cover at the midweek program. And maybe sometimes the way you set it up, your midweek is actually session 1. right? So then we start off with the fun, and this is what we're going to talk about. And then maybe Sunday is when you let it all just like land with the reflection response pieces. You spend more time in small groups discussing and engaging in that way. And that could also be a cool way to structure it as well. But in doing it this way, it really gives kids a chance to be like, okay, I'm in learning mode now. I'm in the sponge stage, but now this is a part where I get to talk and I get to really interact with scripture. And I think that's really cool to give kids an opportunity to do that. We should be doing that anyway, but to be able to do that even more intentionally with more time, I think that's excellent.
Yeah. And this question from Mallory might be coming out of necessity, like needing to do this. But the ways we talked about, all three of them really, like make it into like a possible strength of your ministry because you're going deeper and like you said, building that anticipation. It can be a really cool, like great thing in your ministry. So of course, it's really important after you've tried this to evaluate the effectiveness of what you've done.
Yes, this is crucial.
Yeah, of course. But what we're saying is that you don't need 2 lessons every week. There are great ways to divide it and spread it out. You don't need to just entertain kids. This is more about like sustainable rhythms for you, for your kiddos, for your volunteers. And these are great ways to get there.
Yes,
so
and
maybe,
I'd like to add something, Jason, if I may, because I have worked at churches where we did have 2 different curriculums from 2 different companies, and we'd roll out one in the midweek and one on Sunday. And let me tell you, that was not only labor intensive, but the messaging was really interesting. Like it just kind of, sometimes it would overlap depending on the season. Sometimes it was completely 2 different testaments. And I think it ended up just causing confusion and making the stories from the Bible feel a little disjointed. Yeah. And at the end of the week, they couldn't remember any of it because now we have just cognitively overloaded their brains. And so it's nice to be able to divide something so you're kind of on message for an entire week. And it just really increases the chances of retention for kids. And I think that's very, very important. And to what you said about rhythms, to establish these rhythms as this is what we're going to be focusing on for the whole week, I think that's really valuable.
Totally. Yeah. So what might be a necessity can totally turn into a strength if this is done well.
Right.
And we would say, like, try one of these approaches out and see how it works.
Yeah.
Maybe try the different ones over a month or so, and then ask your volunteers what is working, what is not working. Feel it out yourself and then adjust as needed.
Yeah. And another thing about asking your volunteers about what they think about the format is also gauging which format that they personally feel more invested in and connected to, because some of your volunteers might be very gifted at teaching and connecting with kids and discussing. And some volunteers might be really good at playing games with them and hyping up the fun and being the vibe guy like Jason, right? Like they have these different strengths. And this is an opportunity, if you do split your program, to now really go deeper with the gifts that your volunteers have and let them shine in a more targeted way. And I think that would be really cool and also really frees up the need for a single volunteer to feel like I have to be able to do it all, right? Yeah. So now it really feels like, oh, this is something that I really feel passionate about. I feel confident in doing. And so volunteering doesn't feel as heavy, right?
Totally. Yeah. Doing this the right way can feel like very intentional. Get more, like you said, into the different gifts and specialities that your volunteers have. So it really can turn into a strength of your ministry if you do it well.
Yes, absolutely. So now, I don't know if you have caught on, listeners, but Jason and I do work with Grow Curriculum. And so we are, of course, going to suggest that you check it out. And so you can go to growcurriculum.org right now and get a free series, absolutely free. So you can check it out. See which of these formats you think could work with the curriculum you see there. And, you can always reach out to us if you have any questions because we love to problem solve and help churches really just find out how to maximize their potential. And I'm also going to say for those of you who are already using Grow, hello, love you all. We have a tool called Lesson Builder, and if you're not using it, you are definitely sleeping
You
on it because
should
it's
be
such a
using it.
valuable tool, especially when it
Especially
comes
for
to
this.
splitting
Yeah,
it up. Yes,
totally.
because then you can really move the modules around, like drag and drop, hello.
Yeah,
And you can create the two different meeting formats easily with that one weekly lesson you get. So we invite you all to go check it out right now.
totally.
Okay. But maybe not right now because we have to talk about the most important thing. Not the most important thing, but just a fun thing that we like to
We
do
hype it
is
up
tell
every
you
single
all,
time.
every single time, tell you all what we're into because we like connecting with each other and we like connecting with all of you. So,
Yeah.
Jason, what are you into right now?
Okay. I am absolutely into a couple things.
Okay.
The first one is Justin Bieber, which I
Okay.
really have never been like a believer before. But his recent stuff that he's putting out, it feels like, dude, he's just such a talented guy, and he's like worked
Yeah.
very hard to get as good as he is at music. And I feel
He's
like
a
he's like
solid songwriter.
solid
Absolutely.
and like can play so many instruments and do so many things. And I feel like just kind of getting away from the other stuff that kind of goes around Justin Bieber, and like this new stuff seems like he's just getting down to the music, and I really do enjoy it. Some of the stripped down versions of the songs he's doing now. So I'm really into Justin Bieber. I am a current
Very cool.
believer.
Current
And
believer.
yep. And the movie Hamnet. Have you seen this movie, Linda?
I have not. Say more.
Okay. It is incredible. I watched it last night and I was captivated from the first moment to the end. I'm not going to give away too much of, obviously it's like William Shakespeare era, that kind of spot, which Linda, like I come from a literature background. So like that was speaking my language from the get-go. But then it's also like such a family story, and the power of motherhood, the power of like fatherhood, dealing with grief in different ways. I mean, I was just like crying, but in the best way throughout this whole movie. So I am very much.
You're rarely jazzed about something this much. So
this
I
is
definitely
honestly
will check it out.
one of the best movies I've ever seen. Probably right into my top 3 right away. I'm going to be watching the Oscars, like give them all the Oscars.
The highest of praise.
All of it. So that is what I am into. What about you, Linda? What are you into?
That's amazing. Jason, I'm really excited to check that out because I also have an affinity for Shakespeare. I don't have a literature background. That's just what I grew up with. I love it so much. I remember when I visited London for the first time and the only time. I don't know why I said it that way.
For the first
I was
time.
like, I gotta see the first time I was in London.
What a flex, man.
The only time I've been to London. I was like, I have to go to the Globe. I have to see a Shakespearean play. So.
Absolutely.
Okay, adding that to the list. What I'm into is this Korean drama called Dynamite Kiss. And it's so interesting because I mentioned earlier in this podcast that I did grow up with Korean drama. And for a while, I stayed away from Korean drama because I was so tired of the K-drama tropes. Now, if you know anything about K-drama, there's always I want to make a bingo card of the different things that must show up in a K-drama, right? There must be some sort of love triangle. There must be a guy offering an umbrella in the rain. There's a slow motion fall where a woman is
okay.
all of these elements, right? So this K-drama had all of it. But then what I loved about it is it kind of flipped the script so that it's a little healthier.
Yeah.
So let me just explain real quick. There's like always in your classic K-drama, there's always a parent who disapproves of their wealthy child, getting together with someone from a lower socioeconomic class,
Right,
right?
right.
So then that parent would find this person, whether it's a man or a woman, and throw an envelope of money on the table and be like,
Okay.
take this and disappear and stay away from my child. So then there's a scene where that happens because I'm like, okay, bingo, right?
Yep.
But then they flip the script because a parent actually gets to know this person and realizes this person's actually quite a good person. So then like she takes it back and pretends like
Wow.
that wasn't her intention. And I was like, that's really interesting. And then
Yeah.
there's always a scene of this display of toxic masculinity where like, oh, I gotta be like stronger than this other guy that this, the female lead might be interested in. So they always kind of get
Yeah.
into like butting heads. But then there's this one scene where like he actually says a thing out loud where I'm like, I was doing this because I was afraid that your affections for me will have wavered and I just wanted to impress you. And then
Oh,
there's
wow.
like this really good moment and it was really healthy. And so
So they're like
I really
messing with the
enjoyed it.
form a little bit.
Right. It's like
Yeah.
the tropes are there, but it's a little different. It's a little healthier. It's a little bit more self-aware. So I love that a lot.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. Um,
And of course, the actors in there are just adorable. So if y'all
yeah.
are into K-drama, go check it out. If you've seen it, talk to me. Let's discuss.
Yeah. I've heard you talk a lot about it. I will be honest and say I've never gone and checked it out, but this
Okay.
is very interesting, like I love it when you have like these set things that always happen, but then, an artist takes it and like twists it a little bit. That's
Yeah,
cool.
just a little bit. Yeah.
Very cool.
So it was very enjoyable. Well, as was this conversation, Jason, thank you so much for chatting with me today about this question that Mallory submitted. Mallory, we hope this was helpful for you and for all the listeners who are wondering the same thing. So thank you for asking your question out loud. Listeners, if you have a ministry question that you want to ask us about and talk to us about, that you want us to talk about, please let us know. Submit a voice message at kma.show and we will help you find the answers because that's what we love to do here.
That's
All right.
right.
Thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.